Some stories fade with time, buried beneath dust, silence, and the polite lies families tell to keep their reputations clean. But every so often you stumble onto a tale so twisted, so unnatural, that even the dead seem to whisper warnings the moment you read its name. In the winter of 1892, deep in the Appalachian backwoods, a photograph surfaced 3 siblings standing stiffly outside a leaning barn. Nothing unusual, until historians noticed the brother's swollen wrist, the chain half hidden under his collar, and the 2 sisters staring directly into the lens with eyes far too calm. Locals swore the Hensley Sisters were harmless. They lied, because behind that barn door, behind those boarded windows, the 2 sisters kept a secret no one dared to speak of. A secret soaked in revenge, obsession, and a sickness that could only grow in darkness. Tonight, we open the barn door. Tonight, we tell you what really happened. Welcome to Forgotten Remains. People in Hensley Hollow still lower their voices when anyone mentions the abandoned barn on Old Briar Road. Even now, more than 140 years later, folks refuse to step inside after sundown. Not because of ghosts, not because of animals, but because of what the Hensley sisters did there. Before anyone knew their names, the sisters looked like ordinary mountain girls. Plain dresses, bare feet in summer, hair braided tight against the wind, quiet smiles that never reached their eyes. But the night I found their brother, half-starved, chained to a support beam with rusted iron cuffs, I realized there was nothing ordinary about that family. The story begins on a cold October evening in 1887, when the sheriff asked me to hike up to the abandoned barn and check on a report from a passing traveler. The man said he'd heard a strange noise inside, something between crying and gasping. He swore it sounded human. Most folks dismissed him as drunk. But the sheriff knew better. Strangeness clung to the Hensley land like mold on old timber. The barn stood crooked against the darkening sky, slanted from decades of storms. Its big doors hung open, creaking with each breath of the wind. Crows perched along the rafters, watching silently. I stepped inside. Cold air washed over me, too cold, like it came from someplace far deeper than the hollow beneath the floorboards. Moonlight spilled through cracks in the roof, drawing thin pale lines over rotting hay. At first, everything was silent. Then I heard it. A faint rattle. Metal brushing wood. A breath so weak, it barely rose above the wind. My lantern beam followed the sound. That's when I saw him. A man, maybe 22, maybe younger, slumped against a center beam, wrists shackled with iron cuffs, ankles bound with the same. His clothes were filthy, torn at the edges, his skin pale as winter milk, and his eyes, sunken, ringed with bruised darkness, lifted toward me like he wasn't sure if I was real. When he opened his mouth, no words came out at first. Just raw, dry air. Like he hadn't spoken in days. I moved closer. "Who did this to you?" His cracked lips trembled. "S sisters," he whispered. My sisters." A chill ran through me. "What are their names?" His eyes shifted to the darkest corner of the barn, where the light didn't reach. "Lydia and Maeve." He swallowed hard, wincing. They said the bloodline needed correcting. Before I could ask what he meant, a long wooden creak echoed above us. I raised my lantern. Something moved in the loft. Not an animal. Not the wind. 2 pairs of bare feet, dirt-tinted, dangling just over the edge. Watching. Waiting. The man jolted, chains rattling violently. "They're still here," he whispered. "They never left. And they don't want me free." I stepped back instinctively. A slow exhale drifted from the loft, soft female, like someone savoring the moment before the kill. Then a voice, thin, cold, childlike but wrong, floated down through the dark. "You shouldn't have come here alone." My lantern flickered, and both pairs of feet drew back suddenly, disappearing into the shadows above. The lantern flame shrank the moment their voices faded, like the light itself was afraid to stay. Dust drifted from the loft as if something had just moved quickly across it. Too quickly for any normal person. The brother tugged at his chains, panic rising in his eyes. "Please, take me out," he whispered. "Before they come back." I knelt beside him, examining the metal cuffs. They were old but not fragile, heavy iron, hand-forged, the kind meant to restrain livestock or prisoners. The lock, however, had been smashed shut with a hammer. There was no keyhole left. Only warped metal. "Who put these on you?" I asked. He didn't answer. He only stared into the shadows where his sisters had been. A sudden thump shook the rafters. I jerked my head up. Another thump, heavier. Closer to the loft edge, followed by a whisper of fabric sliding across old wood. The brothers' breathing sharpened. "They don't like men trespassing on this land. Pa used to say the barn belonged to darker things before us." They believed him. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. "Your father?" I asked. He nodded weakly. "Vanished. Like Ma, like everyone who tried to take us off this land. Before I could respond, a soft humming started above us. A lilting old mountain lullaby, but slow, broken, and chillingly off-key. The kind a mother might sing to a child she secretly hated. The lantern flickered again. "Don't look at them," the brother whispered quickly. "That's how they get inside your mind." But the humming stopped. Footsteps drifted across the loft floor, bare, deliberate, dragging slightly as though savoring each step. A rope hung down from the loft suddenly, swinging gently as if someone had just dropped it. I froze. Then a hand slid down the rope, thin, pale, long-fingered, nails black with dirt. The hand tightened and a figure slowly lowered herself into view. Her hair fell in tangled ropes over her face. Her dress, faded blue, was torn at the hem. Her feet were bare and smeared with old mud. But her face, it stayed hidden behind the curtain of hair. She dropped the last few feet, landing beside the barn beam with a soft thud, head tilted downward like she was listening to the earth. The brother shrank back. "Lydia," he whispered. "Don't." She lifted her head just enough for me to see her mouth. A small, calm smile stretched too wide. "You don't belong here," she said, voice soft as frost. "No man does. Not anymore." I stepped back cautiously, hand near my revolver. "What did you do to him?" I demanded. Her smile twitched. "What had to be done?" Another voice came from behind me, quiet and close. "And what will be done again?" I spun around. Maeve stood there, silent as a ghost, her hair equally tangled, her dress a darker shade, her eyes wider, more alive, more dangerous. She stood between me and the barn door without making a sound. The two sisters moved in slow unison, forming a perfect angle around me, cutting off every exit. Then Lydia spoke again, almost gently. "You brought light with you." Her eyes flicked toward the lantern. That was a mistake. Before I could react, Maeve blew across the lantern's flame with a single smooth breath. The light died instantly. The barn fell into complete darkness, and in that darkness both sisters whispered in unison, close enough for me to feel their breath at my ears. "Now we can begin." The moment the lantern died, the barn exhaled, like the whole structure had been waiting for the dark to return. The sudden silence wasn't empty. It was thick, breathing, alive. I couldn't see the chains, the floor, or even my own hand. The only sound was the frantic rattle of the brother trying not to scream. Then, a soft giggle drifted through the darkness. Not a child's giggle. A woman's. Broken. Hungry. I stepped backward, boots scraping the dirt. Every echo felt wrong. Delayed, stretched, like the barn itself was bending the sound. "Stay still," the brother whispered sharply. "They can see in the dark." I froze. Something brushed my shoulder. A hand. Cold. Delicate. Too slow to be accidental. And too confident to be human. Lydia's voice rose out of the black. "Why did you come here, stranger?" Each syllable slithered closer. "Why open our past? Why wake what sleeps?" My throat tightened. "I'm here to help him," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The sisters responded together, their voices overlapping like two rusted blades scraping against each other. "He is ours." I heard the chain jerk violently as the brother struggled. "Don't listen to them," he cried. "They're not what they used to be. They're not." His words cut off abruptly. A hand had clamped over his mouth. He whimpered through it, metal rattling in terrified rhythm. Maeve's voice drifted from my left. "Men ruined this family once." A pause. "We don't allow second chances." A sudden burst of wind shot through the barn, icy, unnatural, smelling of damp earth and old blood. It whipped dust into my eyes, stinging until they watered. And something else came with it. A whispering chorus, faint, layered, growing. Dozens of voices, male voices, moaning, choking, begging. Quick flashes fired behind my eyes, not memories of my own visions. Men trapped beneath floorboards, hands clawing from shallow graves, eyes staring through cracks in the wood, faces pale, distorted, screaming without sound. My knees buckled. I gripped a beam to steady myself. Lydia's voice floated inches from my ear. "You feel them, don't you?" A soft laugh. "All the men who tried to take us from our home, who tried to take advantage." Maeve added, "We returned them to the earth they stole from." My breath came out shaky. What are you?" Lydia answered, but her voice wasn't human now. It layered 3 deep, echoing like voices trapped in a cave. "We are what the mountains made us." Something moved behind me, fast. A rope tightened around my arms before I could react. Invisible hands pulled, yanking me backwards so hard my spine hit a beam. The sisters' voices rose. "Now it's your turn to listen to the ground." The floorboards beneath me began to creak, rising, shifting, as if something was trying to push up. The brother screamed as the chains rattled violently. "Don't let them take you." "That's where they put." A loud crack tore through the barn. The floor beneath me split open. Cold air rushed up from a black pit below, air that stank of rust, rot, and old death. Something reached up from that hole, something with fingers. Gray, swollen, grasping fingers. Their nails scraped my boots. The sisters whispered, "Join our collection," and the hands tightened around my ankles. The hands dragging at my ankles were ice cold, wet, and impossibly strong, stronger than anything dead had the right to be. My boots scraped against the warped planks as I kicked, but every movement only made more hands reach from the hole, pale arms writhing like roots disturbed after 100 years underground. The sisters spoke in unison, their voices drifting above me like funeral smoke. Down, down where the others rest. A faint glow pulsed from below, sickly yellow like lantern light smothered in fog. And in that glow I saw them, dozens of faces, sunken, gray, eyes open wide, staring directly at me. Men of all ages, thin, bloated, twisted, packed into the earth below the barn like a harvest no one dared speak of. The sisters didn't bury their victims. They stored them. The brother, still chained, thrashed wildly, his voice cracking. "Don't let them pull you under. You won't come back right." His warning wasn't metaphor. One of the dead men gripping me moved its lips, slowly, dust spilling out with each word. "Switch places. Come down. Let us breathe again." The rope around my chest tightened. Something unseen pulled me backward, forcing my spine against the support beam as the hole widened, boards peeling themselves apart like the barn had grown a mouth. Suddenly, a shrill scream tore through the dark. Maeve's voice, a raw, guttural wail. "There's another one coming," Lydia snarled. "Keep him down. Finish the ritual." Footsteps pounded outside. Heavy, frantic. A figure burst into the barn, carrying a dim lantern that flickered wildly. It was Elias Hensley, the sheriff's grandson, the only surviving member of the old Hensley line. The same man who warned me about returning to this valley after dark. "Let them go," he shouted, voice cracking with terror. The lantern's glow hit Maeve's face first. She recoiled, not like a person avoiding light, but like something burned by it. Her skin blistered and peeled in seconds, revealing dark veins beneath a translucent layer. She hissed, a sound no human throat could produce. Elias lifted the lantern higher. I said, "Let them go." Lydia lunged at him, her feet not touching the ground, gliding instead of walking. Her fingers stretched unnaturally long, nails curling into talons. The lantern flared white, a burst of light like magnesium igniting. Lydia shrieked, smoke pouring off her skin. The hands around my ankles loosened, not by choice, but like their puppeteer had lost focus. I kicked free, scrambling backward as Elias tossed a pouch onto the dirt. It burst open, scattering gray powder across the floor. Ash. Not wood ash. Human ash. The sisters recoiled instantly. Maeve screeched, "You dare use their remains against us?" Elias barked back, trembling but defiant. "You fed this land with the wrong blood. Now it's taking yours back." The barn groaned, loud enough to shake dirt loose from the rafters. The hole beneath me began to close, hands withdrawing like startled insects. But before the floor sealed completely, I saw the dead again, staring, reaching. Not finished. Lydia leaned forward, her burned face twisting into a corpse-like grin. "This isn't over," she whispered. "He's still ours. He always will be." She pointed one crooked finger toward the chained brother, and for the first time, I saw it. Not the fear in his eyes, but something else. A hollow look, a flicker, a shadow behind his pupils that didn't belong to him. Elias grabbed my arm. "We need to leave. Now." The barn door slammed on its own. Every lantern went dead. And in the pitch black, the brother spoke, but not in his own voice. It was theirs. "You should have let me go under." The brother's voice, their voice, echoed through the pitch black barn, deeper and layered, like two people speaking through his throat at once. "You should have let me go under." Elias froze beside me. "That's not him," he whispered. "That's them speaking through him." A cold draft spiraled up from the floorboards, carrying the smell of damp earth and old bones. The brother lifted his head, chains rattling softly, and smiled. A slow, unnatural, splitting smile that didn't fit the shape of his face. "You freed the wrong one," he said. The barn creaked violently, as if something massive moved through its foundation. Elias grabbed my sleeve. "We run on 3, he whispered. 1. A low moan rose from beneath the floor, long and terrible. 2. The brother's arm snapped forward unnaturally, jerking against his restraints. 3. We bolted toward the door. But the barn wasn't done with us. Every board in the walls flexed inward, bows of wood creaking like ribs collapsing. A heavy beam crashed from above, missing my head by inches. The earth beneath our feet bulged, pushing upward as if the bodies buried below were trying to rise, all of them at once. "Move!" Elias shouted. We reached the door. But the moment Elias touched it, it slammed shut as if an invisible fist punched it from the outside. Dust rained down from the impact. Behind us, the brother laughed. A hollow, choking, unhuman laugh. "You can't leave," he said softly. "Not until they finish." Maeve's whisper floated from the rafters. "Exchange," Lydia added from the shadows. "1 for 1. The brother rose to his feet. Not stood, rose, pulled upward by something unseen, dangling from the chains like a marionette. His feet barely brushed the dirt. His head tilted back and the skin on his neck stretched too tight. "You let me in," he said, voice shuddering the air. "Now someone must take my place." The boards at the center of the barn cracked open again. This time not small, but wide enough to swallow a man whole. Pale hands poured out like water, grasping, clawing, reaching. The ground wanted a body. "A trade." Elias grabbed my arm and leaned close. "It's him, or one of us. How do we break the possession?" I hissed. "There's only one way," Elias said. "We have to sever the link." "And how do we do that?" He lifted the lantern wick. Trembling, we burned the tether. Before I could question him, Elias hurled what remained of the lantern oil toward the pit. Flames erupted instantly. Too fast, too bright, too hungry to be normal fire. The pale hands recoiled into the hole, writhing as if the fire burned them directly. The brother screamed, not a human scream, a layered, splitting, agonized howl. His body jerked violently, crashing back against the beam. The chains rattled like bones shaking. The barn shuddered. Lydia shrieked, "Stop!" Maeve wailed, "He is ours!" The fire grew brighter, almost white, casting harsh shadows across the brother's face. For a moment, I saw the thing inside him fighting to stay, its outline pressing against his skin like a parasite trying to escape a dying host. Elias shouted, "Keep it burning!" I grabbed a pitchfork and swept burning hay toward the widening crack. Flames roared through the barn, devouring the rot, the mold, the dead air. The brother's body convulsed, then suddenly his knees buckled and he dropped, chains clinking. His eyes rolled forward. Normal. Confused. Terrified. Where am I?" he whispered hoarsely. Behind him, the sisters howled, their bodies twisting in agony as the fire raced across the barn floor. Maeve staggered forward, smoke pouring from her skin. "You don't know what you've done," she hissed. Lydia's voice lowered to a guttural rumble. "You've broken the cycle." Elias grabbed my arm again. "We need to get out now. The whole damn place is gonna collapse." Beams snapped overhead, the roof groaning as flames consumed the rafters. Ash rained down like black snow. We pulled the brother from the beam, dragging him toward the back door, the old service entrance. Just as we reached it, a final scream tore through the fire, the sister's last furious cry. "You can't break blood." The door burst open, and the cold night slapped us in the face as we stumbled out into the dark field behind the barn. But the moment we caught our breath, the brother whispered something that froze my blood. "They're not gone." Elias turned sharply. "What do you mean?" The brother stared back at the burning barn, eyes wide, voice trembling. "They got out before the fire." The flames swallowed the barn in a roaring column, sparks shooting into the night like burning insects. But the brother wasn't watching the fire. He was staring into the tree line, his pupils shrunk to pinpoints. "They're not gone," he whispered again. "They slipped out. Through the earth." Elias cursed under his breath. "That's impossible." Before he finished, a low hum rolled across the field. Not wind, not animals, something deeper, older, vibrating through the soil under our feet. The brother clutched his head, dropping to his knees. "They're calling me again," he cried. "I can hear them. Inside the roots, inside the ground." I grabbed his shoulders. "What are they saying?" His voice cracked. "They want a new host. And they're choosing." The firelight behind us made our shadows stretch long across the grass. And then, one of the shadows moved wrong. Elias saw it too. "That's not ours," he whispered. A tall, thin silhouette stood at the far edge of the field. Not approaching. Not attacking. Just watching. Its outline flickered like smoke caught between worlds. Maeve's voice drifted on the cold wind. "Blood remembers." Lydia's voice followed. "And it returns home." Elias stepped forward, rifle shaking in his hands. "Show yourselves." The shadow tilted its head. Too far. Bones popping like snapping twigs. Then it glided backward, disappearing into the darkness between the trees. Not walked. Not ran. Glided, just like in the barn. The brother screamed, curling forward as if invisible hands squeezed his ribs. "They're choosing. Hurry. One of us is next." I looked at Elias. "Where can we take him? Somewhere safe?" Elias swallowed hard. "There's only one place. My grandfather knew about them. He left journals, warnings, but it's deep in the mountains." The brother gasped. No, no, we can't go toward the mountains. That's where they're strongest. Elias shook his head. That's also where the only way to end them is. Before I could respond, a sound split the air. Crack. A tree snapped in half somewhere beyond the ridgeline. Another crack. Another. The forest moved like something large was passing through it. Something unseen, but heavy enough to knock down timber. Elias turned pale. They're shifting the land. The brother grabbed my shirt, terror in his eyes. They're pulling the roots up. They're waking the ground. They're not just ghosts. They're anchored to this place. They've had a century to grow. I stared into the woods. The shadows between the trees thickened. Too many, too wrong to be natural. Branches bent in unnatural arcs as if something crawled between them, dragging weight behind it. Maeve's whisper floated again. One must return, Lydia followed. One must replace. I felt the ground tremble beneath my boots. A faint, rhythmic thudding from deep underground. Thum, thum, thum. Elias swore. That's a heartbeat. What heartbeat? I asked. He looked straight at me. The mountains. A cold shock hit my spine. The mountain itself is waking up. The part they buried their power in, he said. The brother tugged at me again, frantic. They're choosing one of us, any moment. And then he went still, suddenly, horribly still. His eyes widened, not in fear. In recognition, his head turned, slowly, toward the burning barn ruins. No, Elias whispered, not him. The brother's lips parted. The voice that poured out was not his. It was the sisters. Both of them, layered, echoing, triumphant. We choose you. His back arched violently. His veins turned black. His pupils vanished entirely. He rose, not walked, rose to his feet, lifted by something inside him. Elias grabbed me. Run! But before we could take a step, the possessed brother snapped his head toward us, bones cracking. Then he smiled with the sister's smile. Running won't help, he whispered, voice slithering. The mountain already knows your names. The brother, no, the thing inside him, stood motionless in the glow of the burning barn, his silhouette twitching as if his bones no longer understood how to hold a human shape. Elias raised his rifle, but his hands shook so hard the barrel wavered. Don't, I whispered. You'll just make it angry. The brother's head tilted slowly, unnaturally far, until it hung nearly upside down. His neck didn't break. It bent. The sisters spoke through him with perfect clarity. Your choices ended the moment you stepped on our soil. The ground rumbled beneath us, short tremors like footsteps under the earth. The soil cracked in thin lines spreading outward from the barn ruins. Elias whispered, voice trembling, they're rooting him. Anchoring inside his body, the brother snapped upright again, joints cracking like burning sticks. He stepped toward us. One step, the earth shivered. Another step, the trees along the ridge bowed inward, as if the forest itself leaned closer to listen. I grabbed Elias's jacket. We need to move, now. We sprinted toward the narrow path leading into the woods. Behind us, the possessed brother didn't chase. He simply watched and smiled. Elias hissed. That's worse. They want us to run. Branches whipped against my arms as we plunged into the trees, boots sinking into soft moss. The moon was bright enough to outline the ridge, but the forest beneath it was black, swallowing our light. The deeper we went, the more wrong everything felt. The trees leaned toward each other unnaturally, forming an arch overhead. The ground pulsed with faint vibrations, as if something huge crawled far below. Elias stopped suddenly. Do you hear that? At first I heard nothing. Then, soft rhythmic tapping, not ahead. All around us. Tap, 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 like footsteps circling. No, not footsteps. Finger tapping. From the trees. On the trunks. On the branches. On the roots. The forest was communicating. The tapping grew louder, faster, dozens of fingers drumming on bark as if excited. The sisters' voices drifted through the woods, echoing from tree to tree. Blood remembers, blood returns. Elias grabbed my wrist. We're close. Granddad's cabin is up ahead. We pushed through a wall of brambles and emerged into a clearing. A lonely cabin sitting crooked on a slope, its windows boarded, its chimney cracked with age. Elias fumbled with the rusted padlock. Hurry, I urged. I'm trying. Give me a second. Behind us, the tapping stopped. The forest was silent. Too silent. Then the brother's voice echoed through the trees, amplified, warped, as if carried by 1,000 unseen mouths. You can't hide from the mountain. Elias finally ripped the lock open, and we stumbled inside, slamming the door behind us. The cabin interior smelled of dust, cold iron, and old paper. Elias lit a match, revealing shelves filled with journals, jars, strange symbols carved into the beams. This is where my grandfather wrote everything, he said. I moved toward a table where a thick, leather-bound journal lay open, symbols scrawled across the pages. One entry read, "If the sisters root themselves in a host body, the land obeys them. To break their hold, you must sever the living conduit." I swallowed hard. What does that mean? Elias didn't answer. A sudden slam hit the door so hard the entire cabin shook. Boom. Then another. Boom. Dust rained from the ceiling. The windows rattled. The hinges bent inward. The brother's voice murmured from the other side. "Calm. Too calm. Let me in." Elias grabbed my arm. "If we let him stay like this, the mountain will claim the whole valley, and then the towns beyond it. Then what's the plan?" He swallowed. "We separate him from them." "How?" He looked at the journal, eyes filling with dread. "There's only one way." The door cracked down the middle. A pale hand slid through, fingers bending backward as they reached for the latch. Elias whispered the plan, and my stomach dropped. Because it wasn't a plan. It was a sacrifice. The cabin door strained against the brothers' unnatural strength, wood splintering, hinges screeching. Every slam shook the walls. Boom. 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 Through the widening crack, his pale fingers reached inward, backward bending, jointless, wrong. Elias pressed his back against the door, voice trembling. "We don't have much time." "Listen to me carefully." He shoved the grandfather's journal into my hands. A page marked with dried blood was open, a single sentence underlined violently. "To sever the sisters, the host must willingly break the bond." I stared at it. "You mean, he has to do it himself? He's possessed. He can't choose anything." Elias shook his head. "No, not unless we give him a moment of clarity. A shock strong enough to force him to the surface." "And what kind of shock does that?" Elias lifted a rusted iron spike from a workbench. Its tip was blackened, cracked, old, but powerful. "This," he whispered. "Iron from the original Hensley homestead. Our family's blood is tied to the same land as theirs. Iron breaks mountain roots. It weakens the connection." The door suddenly bent inward as if something huge pressed from outside. The brother's voice vibrated through the wood. "You can't hide from us." "Little Elias." "We remember your line." Elias's face went pale. He whispered, barely audible. "They killed my ancestors. They took them into the earth, and the land remembers." The door cracked. A gap ripped wide enough for the brother's head to peer through. Eyes white, veins black, mouth stretched in a hideous grin. "You think you can take him away?" Lydia's voice, Maeve's voice. Blended, perfectly aligned. "He belongs to the mountain." The brother shoved his entire arm through the door, bones cracking as it twisted unnaturally to reach the latch. I grabbed Elias. "End it, now." He clenched the iron spike, trembling. "This is going to hurt him. Maybe kill him. He'll die either way," I said. "At least this way he dies himself." Elias nodded once. The door burst open. The brother lunged inside, body jerking in warped angles, head whipping toward us like an animal's. Elias stepped forward. "I'm sorry," he whispered. He drove the iron spike into the brother's shoulder. The effect was instant. The brother's body convulsed violently, mouth opening in a silent scream as the air around him vibrated. The cabin's lanterns exploded into light. His voice split into three voices. 1. The brother's human scream. 2. The sister's furious shrieks. 3. Something deeper, older. The mountain itself groaning in pain. His back arched so far I thought his spine would snap. Elias yelled, "Tell him to fight!" I grabbed the brother's face, forcing him to look at me. "Listen to me. You have to take control. You have to push them out." His eyes flickered. White, black, white again. He choked out a single word. "Help." The cabin floor split open beneath him. Roots surged upward like snakes, black, pulsing, reaching for his legs to drag him down. Lydia screamed, "He broke the cycle! Kill him!" Maeve roared, "Take another! Take any!" The roots whipped toward me and Elias, but the iron spike repelled them, sizzling like they'd touched acid. The brother collapsed to his knees, clutching the spike embedded in his shoulder. His voice, his real voice, shook with pain. "Pull it, all the way through." Elias froze. "That'll do it!" The brother screamed. Elias grabbed the spike. With one brutal jerk, he ripped it straight through the brother's shoulder. A column of black smoke blasted out of the wound, howling like 100 trapped souls. The sisters' screams tore through the cabin, shaking the walls. The root hands shriveled. The shadows recoiled. The mountain tremor stopped abruptly. The brother collapsed completely, gasping for breath. Then, silence. A long, heavy silence. I leaned over him. "Are they gone?" His pupils refocused. He blinked. They're gone," he whispered. "I can't hear them anymore." The weight in the air lifted. The woods outside fell quiet. The tapping stopped. The rumbling ended. Elias sank to the floor, shaking. It's over. But then, a soft voice drifted from behind us. No, Maeve's voice. Weak, fading, but still here. Blood never leaves the land. We turned slowly. On the far cabin wall, forming on the wood itself, were two silhouettes. Lydia, Maeve. Their shapes burned into the boards like scorch marks. Their final whisper split the air. We will return when the mountain hungers again. The silhouettes faded. The cabin went still. Elias looked at me. Then we leave. Now. We never come back. We helped the brother stand. He leaned on us, trembling but alive. As we hurried down the mountain path, dawn finally broke, weak orange light filtering through the trees. The valley felt quiet. Empty. Almost normal. But as we reached the ridge, the brother stopped. He pointed back toward the mountains. Do you hear that? Elias and I listened. At first, nothing. Then, a faint, slow, thoom, thoom, thoom. A heartbeat, far beneath the earth, still alive. Still waiting. The mountain wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The barn still stands, barely. Rot has eaten the walls, vines have swallowed the roof, and the chains inside have rusted into the dirt. But if you walk close enough, if you dare to press your ear to those splintered boards, some people swear they can still hear crying. Others say it's laughter. The Hensley Sisters disappeared into legend, two names spoken only when the wind turns cold. Their brother, the boy they once chained, left behind no diary, no testimony, only scratch marks along the beams and a warning carved where the rope once hung. Never trust what blood becomes in the dark. Whether the sisters were born wicked or whether the mountain made them so, we may never know. But stories like theirs don't vanish. They linger. They stain. And every generation finds someone brave or foolish enough to pull them back into the light. You just did. This has been Forgotten Remains. Until the next grave we uncover, stay safe, stay curious, and never wander alone.